Donald Trump promised that if he were elected president again, that he would make America strong on the world stage. He promised to restore America's greatness and that people from all around the world would start to respect us again. But all Donald Trump has been doing since he's been inaugurated is bashing our allies and cozying up to our enemies. What Donald Trump doesn't realize is that part of what makes America great is all of the diplomatic relationships that we have established all across the globe. What he doesn't realize is military alliances like NATO have brought countries together under one shared vision to fight back against tyrannical aggression. But now Donald Trump is leading us through one of the most consequential shifts in American foreign policy that our country has likely ever seen. He is basically leaving our allies behind and aligning with the tyrant. And I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent. I think this should be concerning for each and every one of us. Because if the United States is aligning with the likes of Putin, this world will be less safe. But let's go ahead and get a quick reminder as to why NATO was actually formed and the types of benefit that it brings to the American people. And if you do appreciate the work I do, please do remember to subscribe.
I mean, the reason that we have this set of interlocking international institutions, from the World Bank to the IMF to the UN to NATO, they were established after World War II precisely because of the tens of millions of people who died in the bloodshed as a result of the competitive conquering aspirations of rising empires and fascist regimes throughout the world. NATO was formed by the United States 76 years ago to pledge that an attack on one member was an attack on all, what is known as Article 5. It started with 12 countries. It now has 32 members. The only time, we should note, that Article 5 was actually invoked, the one time, was when all the allies joined together in one fight, when they all came to America's aid after September 11th. Pledging their troops and materiel to our war in Afghanistan. Canadians, Italians, Danes, Spaniards, Norwegians, Estonians, Latvians, and more gave their lives for our war on terror. That's how alliances work. Allies are supposed to have each other's back. At least they were before this morning.
So the United States and other countries understood that after World War II, that fascists and authoritarians, not only do they make the world less safe, but they carry out atrocities, they trample on human rights. And so we understood that if we could bring countries together under a shared vision, under a shared set of values, that we could push back against that. We shared these democratic principles that we understood was important to uphold. And so we joined together with countries all across the globe, building the greatest military alliance that this world has probably ever seen. But now Donald Trump seems to be abandoning all of that. Instead of strengthening our allies and our military alliances, Donald Trump seems to be aligning with Russia, which is one of the main perpetrators of all of these atrocities that we're currently talking about. Russia has invaded Ukraine. And Ukraine being one of our allies, we should stand strong and back them. We should help the American people understand that democratic values matter and that tyrants like Putin should be smushed like a bug. And we can all agree that the Ukrainian war, the Russia-Ukraine war, has been going on for quite some time. But we should also understand that if we want to negotiate a just and durable peace agreement, that all of the countries are going to have to come together to get that done. But Pete Hegseth just went out there over the past week, and this is what he said.
We must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering. The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. We're also here today to directly and unambiguously express that stark strategic realities prevent the United States of America from being primarily focused on the security of Europe.
This is absolutely insane. What are they doing? You're saying that, oh, well, we're not going to go to pre-2014 borders. Oh, no, we don't think it's a good idea for you to join NATO. You're giving away all of your bargaining chips. This is exactly what Russia was counting on. This is exactly what they wanted. How is it possible that the United States, the country that started NATO, that has built all of these alliances all across the globe, is now the country aligning with Russia? I mean, this is a fundamental shift. This is a complete reversal in American foreign policy. And things only devolved from there, because Donald Trump went out there a couple days later and he said this.
And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal. I could have made a deal for Ukraine.
Is this dude hallucinating? Like, what is going on here? To blame Ukraine for this war is sheer insanity. We all saw when Russia marched across those borders and invaded Ukraine back in February of 2022. The world watched on and saw what they did. For Donald Trump, the President of the United States, to come out and blame Ukraine for starting this war is absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. And things only devolved from there. I know, you probably don't even think it's possible. But Donald Trump yesterday came out and he said this.
He's pretty easy, pretty easy. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia. Something I'll admit that only Trump is going to be able to do in the Trump administration. We're going to be able to do it. I think Putin even admitted that. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably maybe he wants to keep the gravy train going. I don't know what's the problem, but he hasn't been able. He's very upset that he wasn't invited. He could have come if he wanted to, but that he wasn't invited to Saudi Arabia. But he's been working for 3 years. There's never been even meetings or phone calls to stop this war. It's a horrible thing.
This is absolutely despicable. These are Russian talking points, straight from the Kremlin's mouth, trying to accuse Zelensky of being the actual dictator who is not currently holding elections during wartime. These are the things that Putin say. Coming from the President of the United States is just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And what Donald Trump is referring to here is the United States brought Russia to Saudi Arabia to start peace talks, but they have left Ukraine out of the conversations. Nothing says that you're abandoning your allies more than that. How can you call a meeting with Russia and discuss Ukraine and their fate, and you didn't even invite Ukraine to the conversations? I'm at a loss for words because it is so shameful and embarrassing that this is what our president is currently doing. Luckily, Zelensky was able to respond to these comments from Trump. Here's what he said.
Unfortunately, President Trump, I have great respect for him as a leader of a nation that we have great respect for. The American people who always support us, unfortunately lives in this disinformation space.
Short and sweet, but it was to the point. And I think he couldn't be more right here. Donald Trump has built an alternate reality for the MAGA base. They live in a different reality than the one that we experience here on Earth. This is something that we talk a lot about on this channel, how Donald Trump can spin up conspiracy after conspiracy after lie after lie. And now you have, at least a good solid third, maybe 40% of the country who is living in an alternate reality. And that's how you can have the President of the United States come out and accuse Ukraine for being the aggressor in this war. You can have the president accuse the Ukrainian president for being a dictator because he is not currently holding elections during wartime, all because the president lives in this conspiracy bubble. If he just took a step back and maybe listened to some people who are actually educated on these matters, he might understand that holding elections during wartime might not be the safest thing to do, especially if it's you who are being invaded. How are you going to get all the soldiers on the front line to vote? Are you going to gather everybody into, a couple different places so they could become strategic targets of Russia? I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things to consider here, but the Ukrainian constitution sets forth that you cannot hold elections during wartime, during martial law. And even Fox News had on a specialist that kind of recaps these points. And he also brings up a couple other things that Trump has said and refutes them here as well.
Well, a couple of things. Yeah, Zelensky's polling as of February this month is 57% favorable. It was 52 in December. I mean, it was in the 90s and 22 when the war started. But obviously, he's got very favorable ratings. Look at the Constitution that Ukraine has prohibits elections when you declare martial law because of a state of war takes place. And obviously, the incumbent who is trying to run a war to be involved in an election and bringing people together in primaries and other elections puts the people at risk. There's two other parts of that martial law. If you're 18 to 60 years of age and a male, you can't leave the country. And also they're curbing civil liberties, particularly freedom of movement, by curfews in the contested areas. So the fact that their constitution is driving this, the parliament, bipartisan support for all the extensions they've had to the martial law. So they are acting democratically, in my judgment, in abiding by their constitution, and also the parliament is supporting it, which represents the people throughout the country. These are democratic actions taking place in a democratic country.
And that's exactly right. And just to recap what he said, not only does Zelensky, declare martial law, but he has the backing, bipartisan backing from their parliament. That would be like our Congress. So these are democratic actions taking place in a democratic country. And the United States used to be the leader in these democratic values. And with this new Trump administration, we are pulling back from all of that. We are abandoning our allies. And we are saying, nah, let's align more with Russia. It is an absolute disgrace and an absolute embarrassment for the United States of America. If you think that democratic values are important, if you think it's important that tyrants aren't allowed to illegally invade their neighboring countries, you should definitely call your congressperson and push back against this. Because Donald Trump is living in a complete fantasy land where he is, made himself believe that Zelensky is to blame, that he's the true dictator, and that he is responsible for ending this war, when in fact, the complete opposite is true. If Russia wanted to end this war, they could end it today. They could pull out their troops and get lost. But that is not what is happening. Instead, the United States is coming to the aid of Russia in this very strange way, and Putin is likely to get all that he wants. And if you think it's going to stop at Ukraine, I think you're foolish. Because as we have seen, and we can learn from history, these fascist tyrants, they continue to want to expand their borders. And that is what we should expect now that we do not have the United States pushing back against tyrannical aggression. So, this is a 5-alarm fire, in my estimation. The United States is abandoning its allies. We're abandoning our democratic principles. And if you agree that that is the wrong way to take this country, be sure to call your House member, your senator, get a hold of people in Congress, and make your voice known. So, I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We have to build something here on the left that can adequately push back against the right-wing media ecosystem, because they are more in alignment with Russia right now than they are neighboring Americans. So if you do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe. If you want to see how not only Donald Trump, but Elon Musk as well, have absolutely no idea how our government is supposed to work, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.